Hello, this is Alison.
And this is Imelda, reading the first part of the Society News for Friday the 24th of March. On Tuesday, there will be 2 coffee mornings held in aid of the Society on Tuesday the 28th of March. The first at West White, end of the Lion Cafe, from 10:30 to 12, and Bembridge, the Cloisters, 10:15 to 12. Please go along and support these if you are able. The Dolphins will be swimming this coming Tuesday evening, Tuesday the 28th of March, at the Waterside Pool in Ryde. The swimming group has sole use of the pool during the session, and there are lifeguards in attendance. If you are interested in joining the group, please contact the Society to advise us of your swimming ability and for us to advise the Waterside Pool. Wednesday, the weekly coffee morning will be held as usual to support the Society this Wednesday, the 29th of March. The coffee mornings are not just for blind and partially sighted people. Anyone can come along and have a cup of coffee or tea as well as a piece of cake. The Owls will be visiting on Wednesday the 29th of March. No, they're not visiting, they're meeting at 2 p.m. in Millbrook House. The speaker of this week's meeting is Lindsay Taylor, and they will be talking about art. The group lasts approximately 45 minutes, which is then followed by tea or coffee and cake. Thursday. On Thursday the 30th of March, the Knitters and Natterers will be meeting at Millbrook House. The group meets at 10:30 until 2 p.m. As well as the knitting, there is plenty of nattering, as well as volunteers that come in and read to the group during the afternoon. Friday, the Striders will be going out for their monthly stride on Friday the 31st of March. The stride will be going along the River Yar. The minibus will leave Millbrook House at 10 a.m. For those meeting at the start point, you will need to meet at the River Yar source just off Blackgown Road on western edge of Knighton at Knighton Manor Farm. Lunch will be at the Griffin in Godshill. Any other news? The new CEO for the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind. Following the retirement of the current CEO, Estelle Thomas, on the 31st of March 2017, the trustees of the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind are pleased to announce that the new CEO, Miriam Tongue, will be joining the Society on the 3rd of April 2017. The chairman of the Isle of Wight Society of the Blind, Paul Rutherford, said, Estelle has been a good figurehead for the Society during her 4 years as CEO and has taken the organisation through huge changes. While we are sad to see her retire, we welcome Miriam, who also has many years of working in the voluntary sector, and we are sure that she will build on the foundations that Estelle has laid down. Outgoing CEO Estelle Thompson said, It has been a privilege to have served as leader for this organisation. I thank the trustees, staff, volunteers and sight-impaired community on the Isle of Wight for their support during my 4 years with the organisation, as well as their kind comments on my retirement. I know that Miriam has a wealth of experience and will be put to good use at IWSB. Congratulations to Aaron Danvers Jukes, who has won an award at the Isle of Wight Sports Foundation Annual Awards. Aaron won the Disability Senior Men Award, sponsored by Esplanade Garage for Martial Arts.
The Nibbles and Knowledge Quiz will be held at Millbrook House, 137 Carisbrook Road, on Friday the 7th of April. Doors will open at 6:30, ready to start at 7. The cost is £5 per person. Teams of 4. If you don't have a team, then please still come along and make up a team. Please contact the Society for more information. And then a timely reminder, don't forget to put your clocks forward 1 hour this weekend. Scaffolding news. Please find below a list of known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding or hoarding. We are unable to include end dates as many are extended on a week-by-week basis. Also included are tables and chairs permits that have been issued in the past week. Bay Area, 11A St John's Road, Sandown. Trouville Hotel, Esplanade, Sandown. 15 Station Avenue, Sandown. 16A Regent Street, Sandown. Cherry Pickers or Cranes, Shanklin Cliff Lift, East Cliff Esplanade, Shanklin. East Cliff Promenade will be shut to pedestrians for these works. Shanklin Cliff Lift, Lift Road, Shanklin. The area around the cliff lift will be closed to pedestrians for these works. Cowes Area, Development Site, Castle Street, East Cowes. GKN, Clarence Road, East Cowes. 2 Sun Hill, Cowes. Hoardings, 272 to 283 Arctic Road, Cowes. The Newport Area, Nippert Court, West Street, Newport. Newport Minster, St Thomas Square, Newport. Island Optical, 1 High Street, Newport. Superdrug, High Street, Newport. Precision Hair, 50 St James's Street, Newport. Old County Press Shop, 29 High Street, Newport. The Ryde Area, 26 Nelson Street, Ryde. Sea Hill House, Pier Road, Seaview. Hoardings between Hover Terminal Bridge and Railway Tunnel, Esplanade, Ryde. West White Area, On the Rocks, Bridge Street, Yarmouth. Deacons, High Street, Yarmouth. South White Area, 2 Trinity Road, Ventnor. Former Mill Bay Hotel, Esplanade, Ventnor. In this week's episode, Professor Pete Coffey from UCL reacts to the recent US case published in the New England Journal of Medicine of 3 women who paid for stem cell treatment in a private clinic, in which cells from their own body fat were injected into their eyes and which left them all with virtually no vision. Professor Coffey explains the difference between the US and UK procedures. He also updates us on his own trials, seeking to treat macular degeneration. Also, the GDBA on people who decide to return their guide dogs.
Well, now we come to the Isle of Wight County Press for Friday the 24th of March 2017. And the headlines are Very Good Idea, Manhunt on After Murder Plot, Will Cricketers Bowl Over the Eggheads? And to start with, a very good idea, ? The Isle of Wight could own a slice of Red Funnel if Island Independents regain control of the Isle of Wight Council. As the Independents prepare for May the 4th's council elections, Group Leader Councillor Julia Baker-Smith announced they were working on being part of a bid for the company as a top priority. They want to pledge some of the £200 million the council plans to borrow for investment projects to buy a stake in Red Funnel, alongside pension fund or infrastructure investors sympathetic to a community bid. The announcement comes a fortnight after news the ferry company is being sold by an investment arm of the Prudential insurance giant for a reported $250 million. Councillor Baker-Smith said she and her team had a constructive meeting with Red Funnel Chief Executive Kevin George and Director Murray Carter. We are currently speaking with a number of potential investors and Red Funnel directors to prepare to put forward a bid immediately after the forthcoming May elections, she said. Councillor Baker-Smith said it made perfect sense for the island to invest in important infrastructure, get a share of the profits for the island, and have a voice on the board to shape decisions in favour of the island. It seems just the sort of opportunity we should be investing in to keep the island pound on the island and protect the future of our key transport connections, she said. Between now and May, we will undertake the background work necessary so that if and when we are returned to the forthcoming election, our immediate priority will be to pursue the bid. Independent East Cowes Ward member Councillor Louisa Hillard said, "Another advantage is this could give us the ability and influence with regeneration activities in East Cowes and of the Marine Industrial Quarter."
Manhunt on after murder plot. Police may have issued an appeal to find a third suspect believed to have been involved in a brutal attack on a man in Ryde. Henry Thomas Henderson, 51, of Downsview, Sandown, is being sought for questioning in relation to the attack on a man in Newport Street last November. Two people, Louise Spence, 26, of Green Street, Ryde, and Anthony Booty, 49, of Preston Close, Ryde, were charged with conspiracy to murder and appeared before island magistrates on Saturday. Timothy Morgan, 51, was stabbed and tasered in the attack at around midnight on November the 22nd. Police are considering issuing an European arrest warrant as Henderson may have now left the UK. They believe he may have travelled to Wilmslow, Cheshire in February. Henderson is described as white, 5'11" tall, with short dark brown hair, a slim build and a Scottish accent. Detective Chief Inspector Nick Heelan said, "Incidents like this are very rare on the Isle of Wight, and this is clearly a high priority for the investigation team. If you know anything that may assist in our search, please make contact. Anyone with information about Henderson's whereabouts can contact DC Hayley Clayton at Newport Police Station on 101, quoting 44160 441 486, or alternatively contact Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111.
Will cricketers bowl over the Eggheads? Island cricketers will be playing a whole different ball game when they appear on the BBC Two quiz show Eggheads. The team from Isle of Wight Health Associates CC Cricket Club, playing under the name of Whites in Whites, will feature on next Thursday's episode. In the hope of raising money for the club, the idea to enter the TV quiz show came from Treasurer Roger Cooper. After a detailed application process, team captain Professor Geoffrey Pilkerton and teammates Don Rowe, Paul Barnard, David Hans and reserve Phil Taylor made their way to the TV studios in Glasgow where the show is filmed. Members of the team were also keen to raise awareness for brain tumour research and the Footprint Trust. Roger from the Old Forge Close, Binstead, said, "Meeting the host, Jeremy Vine, and the Eggheads was a great experience, and the whole recording process was very enlightening."
Don't rubbish the bins. Bin men have been urged to handle wheelie bins extra carefully. Now householders have to fork out a tenner for lost or damaged ones. The £10 replacement fee was approved by the Isle of Wight Council at last month's budget meeting, prompting people to complain about footing the bill if their bins were thrown on the ground or taken by a neighbour. Councillor John Gilby, the executive member responsible for overseeing the waste contract, said at last Wednesday's council meeting, It's the black inserts and the food bins that normally get thrown around or kicked about. There are going to be workshops with Amy to raise this issue.
Man cleared after boat death trial. A millionaire businessman has been cleared of manslaughter after his friend died in a speedboat crash off the Isle of Wight. Winchester Crown Court heard Aaron Brown, 34, crashed a jet-powered rib into his luxury yacht, killing Ryan McKinley, aged 36. Mr. McKinley was sitting on the 62-foot yacht, Fairline Targa True Blue, and was thrown into the water at Osborne Bay during the incident in June 2015. A tragedy filmed by Mr. McKinley's wife Fran, the frontage of which was played to the court. Hampshire Telecom's executive, Mr. Brown, who denied manslaughter by gross negligence, was this week found not guilty by a jury.
Car left on ferry sparks alert. Fears of a terror threat on the Isle of Wight were sparked after a car was abandoned on a Wightlink ferry on Wednesday. Crew members noticed a car had been left on the vehicle deck as travellers disembarked at Fishbourne before the 6 p.m. sailing. Wightlink staff searched the ship and found no customers were still on board, and so informed the police and Coast Guard. They checked the passenger and vehicle lists and found the car belonged to an elderly man who is a regular traveller. A CCTV search confirmed he had boarded the ferry, and the man later called Wightlink to say he had forgotten to drive the car off. Karen Woods, spokeswoman for Wightlink, said, "Customers embarked on the next sailing after we had identified the car and its owner. Had these checks and searches not quickly resolved the issue of the abandoned car, Wightlink would have dealt with the matter differently. At the time, crew were primarily concerned its driver might have gone missing or even fallen overboard. That is why they contacted the Coast Guard."
Where has the 1.5 million health cash gone? Consultants have been paid nearly 1/3 of the money given to the island to bring health and social care together. The Isle of Wight Council's Scrutiny Committee was told just realised statistics showed consultants, KPMG, received nearly 1.5 million of the 4.7 million of Vanguard funding allocated to the island by central government as part of the My Life a Full Life programme. Councillor Jeff Lumley criticised the expenditure and said he had seen no real outcomes from the process. Councillor John Howe said frontline staff, such as West Wight's Care Navigator, who helped people find the care they needed, did valuable work. But with the sort of money spent on consultants, we could have employed 100 people, he said. And Councillor John McNicholson criticised the length of time it had taken for the council to be told where the money had been spent and what it had achieved. The committee has had a lack of information presented to it in a timely and relevant manner, he said. But National Health Service Clinical Commissioning Group Chief Officer Helen Shields said, "Government did not feel we had the capacity or the capability to achieve what we wanted to do without consultants." My Life a Full Life Programme Director Nicola Longson said, "We were told we had to provide consultancy, and what we have done is manage that consultancy really closely to make sure we have got value for money." Responding to criticism that little seemed to have changed when it came to the delivery of care, Isle of Wight Council Director of Adult Services Dr. Carol Tozer said she was sure frontline staff would be delighted to attend a future meeting to detail how services had been improved. Statistics presented to Monday's meeting showed collaborative and preventive work had reduced hospital admissions with a projected saving of 1.9 million in a full year. Helping people stay in their own homes and reducing hospital admissions and length of stays is central to the controversial Sustainability and Transformation Plan, STP, currently being considered throughout the country.
Islanders give eyewitness accounts of the terrorist attack in London. When I looked out, I could see the bridge strewn with injured people. An islander in the House of Commons has recalled the horrific scene when a terrorist killed and seriously injured pedestrians and police officers in London on Wednesday. The flags at County Hall were at half-mast yesterday, Thursday, in tribute to the 4 killed and the many injured, including 7 critically at the hands of an extremist. The attacker had deliberately driven into pedestrians at high speed on Westminster Bridge before he careered into the gates of the Houses of Parliament. Westminster Bridge and nearby roads were shut. MPs, which included the island's Andrew Turner, were locked in the House of Commons for 5 hours. Islander Kerry Halfpenny, formerly of Winford, who moved to Winchester to work for the Conservative Central Office, was in a meeting with an MP at the Houses of Parliament when the attack happened. The 30-year-old said, "There was commotion, but initially I didn't think it was an issue. However, when I heard gunshots, people started running and heading for the exits in panic. A police officer told us to get away from the windows. We were in Portcullis House, a very secure building, so I felt quite safe, but when it became clear gunshots were fired, I knew we needed to get out of there very quickly. I was warned by a colleague not to go outside onto the streets following a call he had received from someone out there. An ex-minister we knew took us up to an office on the 5th floor. When I looked out of the window, I could see Westminster Bridge strewn with injured people. I saw medical staff running across the bridge to help people. You could clearly see from up there some were not in a good way. At that point, I hadn't realised the car was involved. I thought they'd been shot, and I thought a gunman had entered the building, which was scary. We were in the office for about 40 minutes before anyone knew what had happened. We stayed in the building until 7:30 p.m, which was when we got the all clear to leave after the police had done a security sweep of the building. It was eerily quiet outside when we left Parliament, which was very strange for London. Everyone was quite sombre. Seeing all those people injured on the bridge was a terrible moment. The scene from the window was something that will never leave me. Kevin and Lorna Wilson of South Down Lane Chale were walking along the embankment about a quarter of a mile away from Westminster Bridge when the continuous sound of police and emergency service sirens stopped them in their tracks. Mr. Wilson, 55, said, "We quickly realised something major had happened on the bridge. We had planned to walk across it and were only about 2 or 3 minutes away when the attack happened. It is so scary to have been so close to it, and to think if we had set off from our hotel a few minutes earlier, it could have been us that was involved. We're a bit shaken, but we feel we had a very lucky escape." A group of 45 Year 6 students from Haylands Primary School Ryde on a school residential trip to the capital were visiting the Natural History Museum at the time of the attack, about 2 miles from Westminster. To give concerned parents peace of mind, the school immediately sent them text messages confirming that all was well. After the attack, a visit to the Isle of Wight by Sajid Javid, the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, was postponed yesterday, Thursday. He was due to attend an Isle of Wight Conservative Party conference and visit the new Centre of Excellence for Composites, Advanced Manufacturing and Marine at Whippingham. Mr. Turner's office said, "Andrew wants to thank and pay tribute to our amazing security services who put their lives on the line for the safety of others every single day. His thoughts and prayers are also with those innocent bystanders who have been injured and relatives and loved ones of those who have lost their lives today. There has been so much fear and grief caused by these evil actions today, but the terrorists will not win."
Ireland joint plea to schools supremo. Island schools facing millions of pounds of funding cuts have appealed directly to the Education Secretary for more money. In a letter to Justine Greening, Chairman of Governors representing 13 schools, have argued the Isle of Wight faces specific challenges, including difficulties recruiting teachers, a lack of outstanding schools making it hard to learn best practice from their neighbours, and a lack of behavioural, emotional and social difficulties provision, increasing budget pressures on struggling mainstream schools. The letter, written after MP Andrew Turner advised schools to take their case to the government, said, "We wish to highlight 3 principal reasons while the Isle of Wight deserves additional financial support beyond what is being offered through the revised funding formula. We feel the island is deserving of more funding to enable our children to have the best opportunities to achieve to their potential. The government has promised the island an extra £900,000 next year, but schools have warned it will not cover rising costs." Mr. Turner said, "One of the most concerning issues is historical funding favouring urban areas would be locked in, and island schools would receive £3,000 per pupil less than schools in some London areas. If the money were shared more evenly, every island school would be £57 per pupil better off. I have raised this with the Minister and after teaching unions and associations and asked teaching unions and associations if they will support the removal of this unfair bias against island schools. School unions have said the government's new education funding formula simply redistributes an already inadequate pot of funding and have warned island schools are facing projected cuts of £5.5 million over the next 4 years. And inside it says, "Let us divide the money" appeal. Schools should decide how best to distribute money for education, not the government. That was the message from the Isle of Wight Council, which has published its response to government proposals for a new funding formula. The Department for Education has advised the island would receive an extra £847,000 next year, should the formula be adopted, with all secondary schools gaining and most primaries losing out. But schools have said the sum should not even cover increased costs. Executive Member for Children's Services, Councillor Chris Whitehouse, said, "The Council welcomes the £847,000, but we are strongly challenging the detail of the schemes to achieve a better deal for more island schools. In particular, we are calling for autonomy so island schools can discuss among themselves and agree a position on how overall funds should be allocated locally to take into account specific island needs." Councillor Whitehouse said he was also lobbying the government for more money for schools. Specific island-relating costs, which school governments had highlighted this week, have also been included in the Council's response. A response to the consultation from the DOE is expected in the summer before schools set their 2018-19 budgets.
Hospice Delight at outstanding rating. The Earl Mountbatten Hospice has joined an elite handful throughout the country judged to be outstanding by the Care Quality Commission, CQC. Inspectors examined all areas of the hospice, including inpatient care, daycare and care at home, and top-rated it for being caring, responsive and well-led. The hospice was judged good for being safe and effective. Inspectors praised staff for their exceptional kindness, compassion and knowledge. People spoke of a service that was tailor-made for them, highly personalised and focused on their individual needs and that of their families, said the report. Hospice Chief Executive Nigel Hartley said, Our outstanding rating is testament to the hard work and professionalism of everyone involved in supporting people in the last years of life and their families and friends. Chairman of the Hospice Board of the Trustees, Sarah Weech, said, "The CQC is fulsome in its praise for the breadth and depth of the care we provide for the residents on the island." The report highlighted comments from people who use services saying they valued their relationship with staff and felt that they often went the extra mile. Others praised the work of the hospice's community team, which, on any one day, cares and supports for more than 600 people in their own homes. The report recognised the hospice's work in the community, referencing the partnership with Kissy Puppy, the Sophie Rolfe Trust. Staff viewed all the hospice as belonging to the island and were highly motivated and inspired to offer support that was kind and compassionate to the community as a whole, the inspectors said. They also praised the work of the hospice's schools programme and developments such as the hospice's recently appointed dementia specialist nurse. The report can be found at www.iwhospice.org.
BT Boss knows where Isle of Wight is, but not his staff. BT continued to believe the island was not in the UK, even after a personal apology from the chairman of the telecoms giant for a geography blunder which puts the Isle of Wight in the Channel Isles. After the county press intervened in a wrangle over retired Royal Fleet Auxiliary Chief Officer George Mortimer's telephone bill, he received a call from the office of the chairman. He was promised BT's staff in its Northern Ireland call centre had been told the Isle of Wight was eligible for BT's unlimited UK calls discount and were now aware the island was definitely not a Channel island. Mr. Mortimer, 84 of Marlborough Close Ryde, had been billed £14 for calls to island members which should have been free. But within days of the apology, Mr. Mortimer received a letter from BT with Isle of Wight, WHITE, in the address, telling him calls to the Isle of Wight aren't included in this package as the Isle of Wight is considered out of the UK. And freshwater couple John and Estelle Webster from Silcombe Lane Road were told 4 days after the BT assurance the island was considered to be in the Channel Islands. Mr. Webster says, "My bill included one call costing £13.50, and one BT staff member became quite rude and would not accept what I was telling him. I wonder how widespread this mistake is and how long it will take for BT to put it right." A BT spokesman said, "We have checked Mr. Mortimer's account is now up to date. We will feed back the points raised about the Isle of Wight, and we apologise for any confusion caused." BT Customer Services has contacted Mrs. Webster and credited her account for the calls charged incorrectly and for the duplicate bill. We've apologised to Mrs. Webster and credited her account with £30 as a goodwill gesture. We have put measures in place to update those advisers who are not aware that the Isle of Wight is not part of the Channel Islands.
French honour for D-Day hero turned teacher. A retired schoolteacher who skippered a craft that took part in the D-Day landings was the latest islander to be awarded the Légion d'Honneur medal. John Higgins, a resident at Blackwater Mill residential home, was honoured at a special presentation by the island's Lord Lieutenant Major General Martin White, accompanied by cadet musicians. 3 generations of Mr. Higgins's family attended the celebration, his son and his 2 daughters, a grandson and a great-grandson. The musicians played the 92-year-old, who served in the Royal Navy during the Second World War, the national anthem and a selection of sea shanties. Mr. Higgins, who trained at the former HMS Collingwood base Fareham, served on 3 vessels that were sunk during the war. His most vivid memory was of taking part in the D-Day landings in June 1944. Mr. Higgins skippered a landing craft which carried cooking equipment and 25 chefs who were employed to feed the American soldiers at Utah Beach about 5 days after the first waves of soldiers had moved inland into Normandy. He recalled seeing the bodies of soldiers floating in the sea and making his way through a minefield to get to a farm. Mr. Higgins's daughter, Catherine Dayish Miller, said, "Dad feels honoured to have received the award and the event itself. It was nice to have 4 generations of his family there to celebrate." After the war, Mr. Higgins trained to be a teacher and worked at Barton School, Newport, and at the former Priory Boys' School, Carisbrooke. He also did voluntary teaching work at HMP Parkhurst and taught English to German students during the summer holidays. When he retired, Mr. Higgins, formerly of Recreation Ground Road, Newport, also drove a minibus voluntarily for the Red Cross.
National recognition for the island's finest. 2 major accolades have been won by West Wight Attraction, both natural and man-made. Compton Bay has been placed in the world's top 10 beaches by the Daily Mail on its travel pages. Compton was judged alongside the likes of Ypres Beach, Dorset, and several more exotic locations, including Conche de Berlin on the French Ile de Ré, Camp Moro Beach on Corsica, Playa de les Ilettes on the Spanish island of Formentura. Compton was described as one of the island's best-kept secrets by the review. A 2-mile stretch of sandy beach near freshwater, backed by multicoloured sandstone cliffs, was its description. Tapnell Farm Park, near freshwater, was judged one of the top 20 Easter days out of the whole of the UK. The attraction, on part of the mega 1970 Isle of Wight Pop Festival site, was chosen by the Sunday Mirror for its animals, and at Easter weekend, the Egg Adventure Trail. Chief Executive of the Island Tourism Organisation Visit Isle of Wight, David Thornton, said the 2 were examples of successful marketing of the island. Our media and public relations activity is an essential part of the marketing strategy, as it enables us to communicate the island's key selling points and stories in a cost-effective manner and delivers the greatest levels of return on investment. So far this year, we've secured £400,000 worth of press coverage for the island and have 10 national travel writers lined up to visit in the next few months.
Haven is among the best. The Monkey Haven has been named one of the top 3 small visitor attractions in England. The Staples Haven, which has won a string of awards since opening 6 years ago, has been shortlisted in the top 3 by Visit England, and the news could get even better when Visit England announces the overall winner at a ceremony on April the 24th. Haven founder Don Walser said, "I'm not often lost for words, but when I found out we were in the top 3, I was gobsmacked. 6 years ago, when we set up Monkey Haven, people said we were crazy. Now they're saying we're among the best in the country. This comes just weeks after we struck gold in the Beautiful South Awards and then won a Visit England Gold accolade. We're also the #1 attraction on TripAdvisor for the Isle of Wight. This is all thanks to our amazing staff, volunteers and supporters who share our drive to care for animals in crisis."
Islanders to take part in census test. With plans for the next census to be done mainly online, the Isle of Wight has been asked to test plans for digital assistance. The island is the only place in the country to have been selected to pilot assisted digital help as part of a test census. Randomly selected households in Cowes, Newport, Sandown and Ryde are due to receive letters from the Office of National Statistics. The letter contains a unique access code that will give them access to an online questionnaire, enabling them to answer the questions quickly and easily. As part of the test, libraries in the area will be on hand to assist online if required. A spokeswoman said, "It's crucial ONS test key elements to make sure everything will work, as it should, on Census Day. The 2021 census will be mainly online, so ONS needs to make sure systems are working correctly. They will also be tested proposed new questions." The Isle of Wight was selected for reasons including the higher percentage of over 65s compared to the mainland, 26.6% compared to 17.9%, and lower levels of reliable broadband and mobile coverage, the spokeswoman said. Library Service Manager Rob Jones said, "We have the computers and Wi-Fi available, and we already provide a lot of support for residents to access digital services, and we are ready to help you if you are one of the households that has been chosen to take part in the census test. If you've been selected to take part in the census test, further information is available at www.ons.gov.uk/census, and the helpline is 0300 068 3001.
Are too many houses being built on the Isle of Wight? Concerns too many houses are being built have prompted a review of the island's planning strategy. A motion called for the Island Plan Core Strategy to be reviewed and forward by Councillor Roger Whitby-Smith at last Wednesday's full council meeting was unanimously supported. Pointing out recent assessments had been carried out since the strategy was adopted 5 years ago, Councillor Whitby-Smith said the review should be undertaken to protect the island from overdevelopment and ensure the right development takes place in the right places. Councillor Bob Seeley said, "Current targets only benefit the government and developers, no one else, including residents who see green fields swallowed up by expensive houses that are unaffordable for most islanders."
And with that, Imelda is saying goodbye to you and have a lovely weekend. It's apparently going to be very sunny and pleasant, although it isn't at the moment.
And it's goodbye from me, Alison.
Good morning, everyone. This is the County Press for the 24th of March, read by Barry
and Chris.
And I'll start with a letter from Mr. J. Warrington, Maplehurst, West Sussex. I wish to raise grave concerns regarding the fixed-linked feasibility survey. I have just spent 10 minutes firstly finding and then filling out the online questionnaire. I would go so far as to say it's blatant and devious way of twisting the figures to fit the wishes of pro-link activists. Why do I state this? Try filling out the questionnaire from the standpoint of a person like me who does not think a study needs to be carried out. Question 7. Do you think it is reasonable for the Isle of Wight Council to commission a feasibility FL study? No is checked. Reason is stated below. Question 8 now does not apply. None of the 10 checkbox questions are relevant to a no answer to question 7. But you have to fill each one in, or else you cannot submit your views at all. Also, you cannot use the same number more than once, so you end up giving high marks to questions that you don't think relevant in any way. So all survey results will be definitely of the fact that they were submitted at all, will show most favourably to considerations of a feasibility study. How can my wife and I show our view of such a study being a total waste of council taxpayers' money? We can't. I would like to have submitted the following at the end of the online survey, but couldn't, as the programme would not allow me to submit without filling in question 8 and its check boxes. Quote, "The island is a very special, beautiful place to my wife and I. made by the fact that it is remote from the mainland. We love the ferry crossing as it adds a certain something to our trips. As frequent visitors, tourists to the Isle, my wife and I would hate to see it spoiled, as I assure you it would be, by increased traffic, development, litter, etc. from a fixed link. Such a link if it went ahead, we would inevitably seek out other unspoilt places to visit, besides the Isle of Wight. So the island would lose our tourist money, and countless other contributions also, I predict. Stop wasting time and the public's money on feasibility surveys. Let common sense prevail. Preserve the beauty of the Isle of Wight, and let the excellent ferry operators continue to do their thing. It ain't broke, so don't try to fix it.
The letter of the week. Mum in a Million. This is from Kate Knowles of Ryde. On the weekend of Mother's Day, I wanted to say my mum is an amazing person. She adopted me when I was 2 months and 2 days old. It was 6 days before Christmas Mum was given me. She literally got a call the day before. My mum taught me I was adopted and loved, and believe me, I am very lucky as I have been truly loved by my parents. When I was 8, my nan had Alzheimer's disease, but instead of her going in a home, my mum cared for her. My nan lived with us for 4 years until she passed away, and it was extremely hard. My mum was amazing at caring for her, and you never saw my mum give up even in the darkest days with my nan. Now my mum is battling stage 3 breast cancer. This was found via a routine mammogram. It's gone from a black mass to lumpectomy, to a full breast removal, to intensive chemotherapy. Mum lost her hair as well as a breast, and yet every day she still bloody smiles and tells everyone she's okay. Last week after chemotherapy I called her the next day and she was bleaching the kitchen. This was at 10 a.m. At 4 p.m. my next call she was hoovering. My mum isn't letting anything stop her. All the time she tells my children it's fine and Nanny's okay. I'm getting married soon and my mum has been there planning and coming to appointments. She is even making my wedding cake. Even when I can see she needs to stop, Mum insists on planning an amazing day for me. When we went to buy my dress, I was full of cold. We sat separately on the boat and away from each other while looking at dresses, as if she caught the cold it would be detrimental to her chemo and immune system. Luckily, she gets on really well with my future mother-in-law and bridesmaids, so they helped her along the way. I hope you can grasp what Mother's Day means to me. It's a day I can celebrate with this amazing lady I call Mum, who won't let anything get in her way. It helps we're both very sarcastic and make lots of jokes about this situation in our lives. Laughter and positivity is important. She's an amazing nan to my 2 daughters, Olivia and Evie. She really would do anything for anyone. Every Christmas, even if it's her day off, she goes to the residential home she works in, dresses up and visits all the residents with rum truffles and Christmas cake. All mums are special, but mine is an all-round amazing one.
It certainly is. And here we have a letter from J.C. Baldry of Ventnor. Dear Mr. Turner, are you proud to be a Tory MP? Are you proud at being part of a government that within 7 years has wreaked the following? 1. Brought our National Health Service to or beyond breaking point, devastated the care home system, thus aggravating the problems of our NHS, brought the prison service also to breaking point. All of the above problems were caused by removing vast sums of money from their budgets and then wondering why the system is falling apart. Local authority funding reduced to the point honourable councillors stepped down because there is no way of setting the budget and still retaining some sense of decency and respect for your fellow citizens. We had a world-renowned free-to-enter botanic garden in Ventnor until funding was removed. Now we have a very expensive garden to visit, too expensive for the average family. that would not survive without all the dedicated volunteers. Police forces around the country are desperately short of officers, with only the most urgent crimes being investigated. The Southern Railway fiasco. The government was warned handing the Southern franchise to GVT would not be successful. It would be too large for GVT to control. Exactly that has materialised. GVT management has never employed enough drivers, and its management of staff is appalling. No normal business would treat its staff in this way. The island schools are now facing the harshest cutback in years. Another nail in the coffin for island school children. All of the above cutbacks in the name of austerity, yet the same austerity managed to give a tax break to people earning £150,000 per annum. A great help to your constituents, Mr. Turner. If your government collected all due taxes from the wealthy of this country, and all businesses that put money offshore to avoid paying taxes, as per a recent PM's father, we would not need austerity. After all, we are the world's 6th richest country.
Rural signs point to health lifestyle. This is from Tricia Merrifield, chairman of the Isle of Wight Bridleways Group. Martin Bilson's letter in the county press on the 10th of March complained about poor signage on our public rights-of-way network. Firstly, the, in quotes, rather battered sign pictured alongside Mr. Bilson's letter actually only needs a good wash, a job which is now done by volunteers. The Isle of Wight Council Rights of Way Department has a statutory duty to sign all public rights of way from the metal road, which, on the whole, is achieved on our island. Some major junctions are also signed, but due to the cutbacks, when signs fall into disrepair, there is not always funding available to replace them. As Mr. Bilson correctly states, the round disc waymarking signs can then be used to direct walkers, equestrian users and cyclists. What our Rights of Way department need is our assistance as users to notify them where the problem locations are, and this can be done online to the email address rightsofway@iow.gov.uk or in old-fashioned letter form to County Hall, preferably sending grid references or, if you are unable to provide these, maps with the problem locations marked where you consider waymarkers are required. Generalised public moaning is not very constructive, and it would be interesting to know if Mr. Bilson, who describes himself as a seasoned walker, has written to his local councillor, the council leader or chief executive during the run-up to budget decision time, stating what a tremendous asset our Rights of Way network is for tourism, sports and leisure activities, and the overall general health and well-being space it provides for island residents.
And from Jim Moody, Isle of Wight Council Labour candidate, Ryde, slipped into the Conservative UKIP coalition budget is a wacky wheeze, borrowing £100 million to play the property market. Full of risk like all gambling, but easy when it's not your money. It's a cert, so they say. There's no prize for guessing who would fork out for the losses when that particular bubble bursts yet again. Thankfully, we can call a halt to this reckless Conservative UKIP delusion come the council elections on May the 4th. Electors can put it out with the bins together with yesterday's men, but their dodgy proposal teaches us one lesson. Fulfilling islanders' needs for quality housing at low rents must be achievable. How? Well, clearly, Councillor Stewart and chums reckon the council can effortlessly borrow multi-millions at low interest even for their dicey deal. If that's so, then no one need complain later this year when newly elected Labour councillors propose borrowing. Though not to gamble with, but to finance a sure thing. Building homes for island people who need them. Choices. Do we punt millions or build to improve people's lives. You decide. Meeting ordinary people's needs might not suit the rich 1%, whom the Tories and UKIP represent. But as sure as eggs is eggs, it suits the overwhelming majority of islanders. That's a real democracy in action. Voters just have to seize the opportunity and feel the power.
Special parade planned by Scouts. From Barry Groves, Assistant District Commissioner, East White Scout Sandown. This year is the 110th anniversary of the start of the Scout movement by Sir Robert Baden-Powell. To celebrate the event, the island will be holding a joint East and West White District St George's Day parade at Newport on Sunday, April the 23rd. The groups will assemble at Newport Quay and march to Newport Minster, led by the White Diamonds Marching Band. The route will be from the Quay, Sea Street, Holyrood Street, Lugley Street, Lower St James's Street, High Street and St Thomas's Square. The start of the parade will be at 2:15 p.m. and everyone will be at the church before 3 p.m. Unfortunately, this will mean a few slight disruptions on the route for safety reasons. We have been very fortunate in having the support and cooperation of Island Roads, Isle of Wight Council Parking Services, Isle of Wight Division of Docklands Traffic Management, Southern Vectis and the police. We would like to invite any ex-scouts, ex-leaders, parents, friends and supporters to line the streets to show their support for the Scout movement. We would also like to offer our apologies in advance if the parade should cause anyone any disruption to their travel plans.
And why is Aldi cash not used for road safety? From P. Baker Lake. At the March meeting, our hard-working but unpaid and possibly overlooked planning officers, parish councillors in Lake, were unable to answer questions on the current situation on unallocated monies from the planning gain levy, previously section 126, charged on the Aldi development. I understand parish councillors' request for a bus stop bay outside Aldi and the industrial estate was denied, leaving a continuing congestion problem. More alarming is the situation where Broadley Primary School on the increasingly busy Newport Road and within sight of Aldi is left without a safety crossing, zebra, pelican, puffin or human lollipop. So much for the safety priorities.
From Charlie Millington of Bembridge, Village Together. I am incensed by Jonathan Young's column in the County Press Weekender on the 17th of March on the Bembridge so-called fish party. Since Mike Tarrant took over as chairman, I and a lot of people think he has done an excellent job in getting the majority of the village on the same side. The parish clerk, Emma Goldring, has helped turn the village around, Stane Park playing fields being a prime example. The issue, re the village hall and Captain Stan's fish shop, has clouded the issue, and the general consensus is it should not be sold. As far as I can see, the parish council is having a change of heart on this.
And Directors Old Trust doing well, from William Hans Bromwich in Cowes. Both Eve Richardson, Chair of Isle of Wight NHS Trust, and Karen Baker, its CEO, praise of the record of Philippa Slinger, the Trust's new improvement director. I read the 2014 CQC report into Heatherwood and Wexham Park Hospitals, NHS Foundation Trust, which Ms Slinger led as CEO before resigning. It is absolutely damning. Not one single category was rated above inadequate or required improvement. Wexham Park does not, however, illustrate what can be achieved with a trust that appears beyond redemption. Immediately after Ms Slinger and her team's departure, Wexham Park Hospital went on to achieve, in just 2 years, gradings of excellent and good in every single category in its 2016 CCQ report, all of which clearly illustrates it wasn't the staff on the ground who were the problem.
Apley cyclists need help. This is from Ian Pratt at Ryde. I was wondering why there are so many illiterate cyclists near the Dell Cafe at Apley. They persist in cycling along the sea wall, despite signs prohibiting it. Sooner or later there will be an accident with a cyclist and a baby buggy or wheelchair. Could not the Isle of Wight Council employ a teacher to assist the cyclists with their literacy? At the same time, perhaps a fitness trainer could be employed to help dog walkers exercise by bending down to pick up their dog poo. I know it is a lot to ask of dog owners to stop and collect their dog's poo, but I'm sure with some training it could be done.
And now looking back 100 years ago, March the 24th, 1917, well-to-do islanders were urged not to eat potatoes, so the maximum supply would be available for poorer people. An appeal from Lord Davenport said the stock in the county was unusually short, and no further supplies would be obtained for the coming 3 months. In an effort to increase agricultural output, the War Office was offering drought horses and drivers for loan to farmers on the island. Horses and mules were offered only with their military drivers when they were excess to military requirements. Horses or mules were offered at 4 shillings a day, and their soldier drivers also at 4 shillings a day, but only 2 and 6 if board and lodging could be provided for the soldier.
75 years ago, March the 28th, 1942. A Shanklin woman received good news when she was told her husband, who was reported missing 3 weeks earlier from Penang, Malaya, where he had been stationed for 3 years, was alive and well. Mrs. A.R. Cook was told her husband was fit and well in Bombay. The Ministry of Supply was calling on the District Council to enlist more volunteer salvage stewards to increase household recycling and aid the war effort. War developments meant the need for salvage was becoming more urgent. The leaders of street fire watching groups were invited to a meeting at Northwood House to help the council find volunteers. Salvage stewards primarily had to canvass their own street and see everyone was making the maximum effort to save.
And 50 years ago, March the 25th, 1967, a 300-year-old county council building due for demolition in Newport caught fire. The 3-storey Hazards House was evacuated in 1961 when it was in danger of partial collapse. A former butcher's shop 2 doors down was, at the time, used to store council equipment, including new school furniture, and as a precaution, staff removed the stored items and put them in the street. A new hovercraft service between Cowes and Portsmouth was opened by British Rail's Seaspeed. At the time, Seaspeed was already providing a 20-minute hovercraft service between Cowes and Southampton, and Hover Travel was providing a service from Ryde to Gosport and Ryde to Southsea. In 4 months, Seaspeed had recruited staff, built terminals, and had carried more than 60,000 passengers between Cowes and Southampton. The same week saw the reopening of the Island Railway service between Ryde, Pierhead and Shanklin after an 11-week closure for electrification.
25 years ago, March the 27th, 1992. Red saucers were to be suspended from power lines to stop swans flying to their deaths. A West Wight resident who found 2 cygnets dead beneath power lines welcomed the news Southern Electric was set to make sections of overhead lines more visible to birds. With 2 weeks left before the 1992 general election, campaigning on the island was in full swing. Labour candidate Ken Pearson hit out against the Liberal Democrat candidate Peter Brand, who claimed in his first election leaflet he was the only real challenger to the sitting Tory MP Barry Field.
10 years ago, March 23rd, 2007, the Rolling Stones were announced as headliners for the Isle of Wight Festival. It came after months of speculation and was announced in a special webcast on the Stones' own website. Mick Jagger said, "Festivals have changed a lot over the years. I don't know about the Isle of Wight Festival or what to expect."
White Memories. A wartime life discovered in memorabilia. Surprises as well as sadness often follow bereavement. People collect experiences and a great many possessions throughout their lives, which give those left behind at least a small window looking in on them. 4 years before he died at the age of 89, Victor Smith surprised his family during a discussion on the 60th anniversary of the atomic bomb being dropped on Hiroshima. He produced a glass turned molten by the intense heat and a photograph of the devastated city. His family had been aware Victor of Bernard Road Cowes had served as a petty officer in the Royal Navy Far East sphere of operations, but they had been unaware of his souvenirs. "I have seen lots of things, as you do, when you are in the services during wartime. I just did not bother to show them off," was his response. He also had pin-sharp memories of the devastation wrought on the Japanese city, where all but a handful of buildings were flattened by the blast.
After Victor died, his family went through his possessions, discovering some rarities, including a cutting from the county press of June 2nd, 1951, showing an 11-strong contingent from the island serving on HMS Theseus, a rare book on the warship, lots of national newspapers with stories and photographs which were obviously special to him, and an even rarer carbon copy of the ship's operational record off Korea. That record details 36,401 miles steamed and 3,446 sorties flown. A total of 523,000 40 millimeter shells were expended, 1,390 500-pound bombs dropped, 84 1,100-pounders and 76 depth charges. Observed casualties 1,750. It details a trail of destruction, including 93 junks, 153 railway tracks, 25 bridges, 495 buildings, 73 road trucks, 66 store dumps, 6 railway tunnels, 17 warehouses, 33 gun positions, 16 road bridges, 43 railway engines, 8 tanks, 3 railway stations, 19 factories, 5 power stations, 10 command posts, 4 railway sheds, 2 jetties, 3 cars, 1 hangar, 5 roadblocks, 12 cars, 51 barrack buildings, 2 steamrollers, 2 buses, 1 tug, 1 excavator, 1 floating bridge, 1 bulldozer, 1 pump house, and a camel. So I think we've received sufficient information there. Victor, who also served on HMS Renown and HMS Repulse, was luckily not on the latter when she was sunk by a Japanese aircraft on December the 10th, 1941. Also snapped some rare photographs of Repulse from the deck of his ship. They are marked on the reverse, passed by censor, but not for transmission through the post.
And now my view. A panel of columnists take it in turn to give their take on life as it is played out on the Isle of Wight. And this time it's the turn of Jake Harrison, the new face of Island High Street. I hardly recognise Newport High Street anymore, which is sad and a bit depressing. It's become a mixture of charity shops, fast food joints
and hip new barber shops. So what's next to go? It's a great shame. I knew the virtual hurricane would hit the mainland first, but I didn't expect it to hit our great, proud, vintage, flag-bearing island quite so hard. I suppose at some point, though, the super wave of the World Wide Web was always destined to reshape our high streets and the way we shop. We have lost some iconic retailers and become bargain mad, and who can really blame us? Gone are the classic island favourites, HMV, Woolworths, and a personal favourite of mine, Sanders Sports, replaced with the super bargain shops, Poundland, 99p stores, and so on. Struggling, independently run shops go out of business quicker than you can say discount, because they simply can't compete anymore. They are so replaced with charity shops, kebab shops and barber shops, or should I say trendy salons.
Why are these all so popular? Because they are very cheap, simple as that. You can almost do a basic week's shop for less than £10 in many of these shops. It's not hard to see why shoppers flock in their hundreds to these places. Why are our favourites gone? Because it's also cheaper and more convenient to shop online. Amazon is a great example. It's brilliant. The one-click delivery service cannot and won't be beaten. Retail is ruthless. I remember me and my friends from school would regularly visit Newport High Street on our weekends off from school. We used to spend hours browsing the vast selection of shops on offer. Did we spend anything? No, we couldn't afford to. But that's not the point. We didn't have to. We were immersed in the experience of proper shops run by proper people. You don't get the same authentic experience with the internet. How come Gunwolf Quays, Portsmouth and Southampton got to keep their HMV stores and ours had to go? And what's more to the point, why was it replaced by yet another Poundland? There are now three of this type of shop in the same high street. Do we really need another? What next? 50p land? 25p land? Or everything is pointless and now free of charge land? And how many barber shops are there now? I normally get my hair cut once every 3 months. Now I'm so spoilt for choice, I could go to a new barber shop every day. It's not just Newport either. Ryde High Street is now a gormless ghost town, and Ventnor looks like something out of the 1950s. Don't even get me started on Shanklin. Even some classic island pubs have been forced to close because of the Wetherspoon whirlwind of 2 for this and 5 for that deals every night of the week. What is the point of going shopping anymore? Today the new generation of teenagers with their silly haircuts and pointless piercings will never know the pleasure of a Woolworths pick and mix session or the weekly treat of a CD from HMV after a long week on the paper round shift. Nope, they have grown up on computer games and tablets and a world of one-click delivery service sites. Perhaps the decline in real classic retailers is one of the reasons they insist on hanging out on street corners looking for Pokemon every night. Maybe they're getting bored. I'm hardly surprised. That's the way of the modern world now, and we must accept it and move with the times. The island was always going to be affected like this, like the porky kid in the school sports day race. We live in a new age world of cheaper the better. And to the inglorious internet, you've taken our best shops. What's next? Our pensioners? Remember this, folks. You get what you pay for.
And the second columnist to give his view is Matthew Chatfield. Forget the loos, let's shut a few roads. Come with me on this diversion. Let's see where it takes us. In the week it was announced that building new roads increases traffic while destroying the countryside. I've been wondering which island roads we could do without. It stands to reason public funds will continue to be cut. So if we have fewer roads, we'll save money, right? I've got a short list of roads with easy alternative routes already. Betty Haunt Lane for a start. That bridge is just terrifying. Let's just close the whole road. And how about Newport Chute off the Downs Road? Ever tried turning right at the top? It's not fun. You'll be getting the idea by now. There are 3 main roads going from Newport to the west. Surely we could make do with 2. And don't even start me on Culver Down Road. Now, I can see some challenges to this approach, but I've got some solutions. What about the people who live down those roads? They will just have to get together and look after their new, longer drives.
Why should the rest of us pay for the amenity that only they benefit from? There are plenty of private roads on the island already, and they seem to work. Maybe we could get the volunteers to look after the roads. There are plenty of very enthusiastic drivers. Surely they'll be happy to put a bit of time into a few weekend working parties. And for funding, we could form charitable trusts and raise money for a good cause everyone will want to support. Or set up a toll system again. It wouldn't be that hard. There's also the vexing question of deciding which roads to close. Obviously the solution is a community consultation, where we can explain there's not enough money to keep all the roads open, so everyone gets a chance to choose which ones stay. Is the scenario appealing or appalling? Are you eagerly drawing up lists of possible redundant cul-de-sacs or sharpening your pen in ire? Well, stand down either way. It'll never happen for all sorts of reasons. But the road closing thought experiment has a purpose. My question is, why is this such a far-fetched proposition? You see, in real life, exactly the same decisions have already been applied to public service on the island and beyond. So it's ridiculous to close a road. Why is it not ridiculous to close a public lavatory? If it's unsuitable to ask volunteers to run a highway maintenance service, why do we ask them to run libraries or be lifeguards? If we wouldn't expect a charity to fund a road, why do we expect them to pay for a nature reserve or a swimming pool? It's hard to imagine closing any road, but I wish we were just as outraged at the idea of abandoning some of the many other well-loved public amenities that make our island so good to live on.
Behind the news. Winning hearts, minds and money. Key to regeneration. The dynamic duo charged with leading the Isle of Wight Council's ambitious regeneration programme, a death or glory bid to save the authority from bankruptcy, are confident they can sell the island's charms to deep-pocket developers. Please don't mock up photos of us in superhero outfits, joked Rhaenyra O'Donnell, appointed alongside Chris Ashman in December to draw up and deliver a regeneration master plan for the island when asked about the sheer scope of the project. In fact, superpowers would probably come in handy. To describe the plans as bold would be an understatement. They include developing 11 sites across the island to create a staggering 12,000 jobs and 1,200 new homes over the next 10 years, plus £15 million in additional income. With £1 million already allocated for the redevelopment of Kingston Marine Park and the Island Technology Park at Whippingham to create growth and jobs in those industries, and £250,000 of government cash secured for locality hubs at Pyle Street, Newport and the Heights, Sandown, providing community, health and social care services. Chris and Rhaenyra have their sights set on Newport Harbour and Ryde Interchange and Esplanade. An idea put forward by developer Peter Dale, however, to build a Spinnaker Tower-type structure at Newport Harbour was deemed unsuitable by Chris, although it would be a possibility for Ryde.
We will absolutely need private sector funding for all these projects, but I think market conditions are improving. Brexit is going to offer opportunities as well as challenges, and the growth picture is looking positive. There are particular challenges around meeting the island's housing needs, but I'm an optimist. In terms of leisure and commercial development, I think people will be pleasantly surprised. The Isle of Wight is such a special place, and Newport Harbour must be the only undeveloped waterfront site like it in the south coast. Rhaenyra said, "Mr. Dale is very enthusiastic about seeing development, and we want to work with people like that. The fact developers are showing an interest tells us there is definitely going to be a market and there are investment opportunities." It sounds so simple, but islanders who have seen one grand plan after another fall off a cliff, as Chris puts it, will undoubtedly take a more sceptical view. Why will the latest regeneration programme succeed where others have failed? Rhaenyra said, "As the cuts have hit and officers have had to deliver those statutory services, the bigger, flashier stuff gets lost. Officers have struggled to take projects forward as resources disappear. The council will stop paying into its loan repayment pot, diverting a chunk of the cash to fund the regeneration programme. Chris and Rhaenyra, as Director of Regeneration and Assistant Director, will be paid salaries of £98,096 and £77,110 respectively. Although the move has provided a fiscal lifeline for the council, offering a somewhat punchy alternative to even more budget cuts, it could also be considered something of a gamble. When it was announced by the former Island Independent Administration, the county press asked former leader, Councillor Jonathan Bacon, what would happen if it failed and the council failed to secure extra cash. His answer, "I don't know. No one could sit here and give any guarantees, but it's the best opportunity we have to succeed." And the other question is this: what's the alternative? Both Chris, who has run his own consultancy business and has more than 25 years' experience leading regeneration projects in London and Wales, where he hails from, and Rhaenyra, latterly strategic housing manager in Kingston upon Thames, have moved to the island. Chris lives in Newport and will be joined by his wife once she finds a job, while Rhaenyra has lived in Ryde with her husband and 3 children for more than a year. We were visiting my parents, who moved here in 2009. We were walking along Apley Beach and thought how lovely it was, so we decided to move from London. They've already started costing the expansion of the industrial estate at Nicholson Road, Ryde. Spoken to housing developers interested in building on the old Camp Hill prison site, and applied for funding from the Homes and Communities Agency's Accelerated Construction Programme. 3 proposals for Ryde interchange are due to be brought forward shortly after the election, and first on the agenda will be asking island people about the projects they would like to see in their hometowns and villages. Chris said, "These projects have to fit in with the surrounding community, otherwise they will not be well received. They have to add value to the quality of life. They are not just a money-making venture for the council. A brave new world then. Let's hope it pays off."
Brass band music for all tastes. Cowes Concert Brass Band will be performing in Newport. The event will be held at St John's Church on Monday. The concert, which will be a blend of music for all tastes, starts at 8 p.m. Admission is free, and there will be a retiring collection to be split between the band and St John's 2020 Vision Project.
And a few notices of events coming up. The voice of golf, Peter Alice, a familiar figure on television coverage of golf, hosts a question of golf Friday the 24th of March at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are £20. And the legendary Dubliners, Dublin Legends, Thursday the 30th of March at 7:30 p.m. Tickets £20. Then we have Neil Diamond, a celebration of 50 years of Neil Diamond hits. Tickets £16 and it's 31st of March at 7:30pm. The Isle of Wight Cantata Choir and Orchestra, Saturday the 1st of April at 7:30pm. Tickets £12, £8 under 16 years. And there's a production of Treasure Island on 21st of April at 2pm. Tickets £10 to £7 under 16 years. Family tickets available from the box office.
And prize-winning pianist in afternoon recital. A winner at the Isle of Wight Music, Dance and Drama Festival, pianist Frances McClendon, will give a recital in Ventnor. It will be her second performance at St Catherine's Church after she decided to spread a little happiness by holding afternoon recitals. As reported, the 28-year-old has more than 20 years' experience and has given hundreds of piano lessons and recitals. She has spent the past year working as a community carer and visiting residential homes to play the piano. She won 2 classes and 4 distinctions at this year's music festival. The recital will be held at 2pm on Wednesday, April the 5th. Tickets are available from St Catherine's, Wendy's at Ventnor, St Lawrence Post Office or on the door. And just what's on at Shanklin Theatre. Danny Baker is on Wednesday the 29th of March. John Suchet, Saturday the 1st of April. Santana, Oh Yeah Santana, Friday the 7th of April. And Al Murray, the pub landlord, is on the 8th of April. And if you'd like to book to see Jason Donovan, he is on Wednesday the 18th of October. There are also the Island Savoyards are presenting Jekyll and Hyde, the musical, on the 13th of April until Monday the 17th. And then there's Strictly Murder from the 19th to the 22nd of April. And Richard and Adam are on the 28th of April.
And now it leaves me to wish you all a very happy weekend. It's cheerio for now from Barry.
And it's goodbye from Chris.
This is a download from the BBC. For more information and our terms of use, go to www.bbc.co.uk/in-touch. Good evening. Tonight, 3 patients in the US have lost most of their sight after unregulated stem cell surgery. Could it happen here? We speak to one of the world's leading experts in the field. And better news for those fighting to save 3 hotels which offer a specialist service to visually impaired holidaymakers. But first, for many years now, stem cell surgery has seemed to offer one of the brightest hopes of saving and even ultimately of restoring sight. However, a recent case at a private Florida clinic has highlighted the risks of such treatment if it isn't properly supervised. The New England Medical Journal reported that 3 women had cells taken from their own body fat and injected into both eyes. They have subsequently lost most of their remaining vision. 2 of the women have received compensation, but the clinic has suffered no additional penalty. Well, for more than a decade now, Professor Pete Coffey of University College London has been working on projects to develop the technique of stem cell surgery, particularly in the treatment of the West's greatest cause of blindness, macular disease. He told me his reaction to this case.
Absolute astonishment, not even just the stem cell community, but the whole sort of ophthalmology community, that anything like this could happen.
Now, clearly the question that people are bound to ask is what's to stop this happening in the UK? After all, private clinics exist here. There have been problems over such treatments as laser before connected with eyesight. You know, why should we believe it couldn't happen here?
A very good question, Pete. I think it couldn't happen because this was labelled as a clinical trial on clinicaltrials.gov. And within the UK, we have very strict procedures on how those trials are run. And equally, there's also good clinical practice, which has to be maintained for any organisation to be allowed to do clinical trials. There is no way a patient in the UK on a clinical trial would have to pay for those procedures. That's just not considered ethical at all. Equally, in terms of injecting patients both eyes, just wouldn't be done. That's not good clinical practice in a clinical trial, because as with any new therapeutic, you're not going to take the danger of taking an untested therapeutic into two eyes at once. I mean, that's just unheard of. And as I say, the regulators, both the MHRA and also the hospital ethics and the NHFX.
MHRA, that's Medicines, Healthcare Products and Regulatory Agency.
Just would not allow this stem cell clinic to exist in the UK.
So you don't think that a private entrepreneur, sometimes there are rogue entrepreneurs, and I'm not trying to scare people. What I'm trying to do is to ascertain that you really believe that this just about couldn't happen.
No, and equally, I believe another component around this, and to really emphasise for people, is how or in what way are you looking at these clinics? You should discuss with your GP, with your ophthalmologist, if you're actually considering any type of treatment which falls outside the NHS. And, you should ask extensively questions, which then you can go back to any clinician in the UK. So I would hope that those components would stop such a clinic from existing in the UK.
And the key questions are that you should ask?
The key questions are, is this part of a UK clinical trial? If so, there has to be documentation and there has to be an investigational brochure. You have to be given that information. Does it have ethics from the hospital? And if it's not at a hospital, then where do the ethics lie? Secondly, are you actually paying for this procedure? You should not be paying for a trial procedure anywhere. And secondly, what evidence do they have to assure you that this procedure has been performed safely? There's a very good website, Peter, called the International Society for Stem Cell Research, which has a really good section on what to ask and how to be careful in these situations.
Just looking at it a bit more broadly, is there a danger, do you think, that stem cell surgery has taken on an almost miracle status, and that people think the mere mention of stem cells means some kind of miracle cure?
Yes, I think it has. And I think sadly, that may be an issue for the community itself to be aware of. The idea that a whole replacement of an organ or the whole replacement of vision going back to normal. I mean, the circumstances where people are trying these new therapeutics, they will restore vision, hopefully, to a certain level. But will that give you 20/20 vision or perfect vision again? It's extremely unlikely. That's not to say in the future that there may be improvements which will aid regenerative medicine.
And just to be a bit more positive, where are we now with stem cell surgery in relation to eye disease? And initially, obviously, and particularly in the work that you're doing.
So there's a number of groups throughout the planet who are actually working on stem cells. The first target as ever has been for age-related macular degeneration. Those early trials were done in patients in which central vision was lost. So it was mainly to ensure the safety of the therapeutic and the procedures used, and also to get some idea whether it slowed the progression of the disease. The ones which will be coming out soon give a better idea of exactly how well those therapeutics will work before someone loses their central vision. So first of all, it was to obviously test their ability in slowing the disease. Now it's a case of, can they actually save the vision prior to it being lost? And I think over the next year, a number of papers will start to be evident that there is a possibility in saving vision. So some of our own work now has gone for publication, which we hope will see the light of day by the middle of the year.
And here, the prognoses and how long is always the kind of elephant in the room, isn't it? Can I ask you about that? Because it kind of feels to a bystander a bit as if we say, when are we likely to see some results from this? Oh, it'll be 5, maybe 10 years. And you ask 3 years later and it's still maybe 5, maybe 10 years. Would you accept that has been something of the experience of stem cell?
Yes. And I put my hands up to that as well, actually, Peter, in that we hoped when we started the London project that we'd be in clinic within 5 years. Actually, it took us 8 years. I think one of the things which is becoming more evident within this arena is exactly how long it does take, and can we not actually in some way improve that timeline. But I, with yourself, absolutely agree that the 5 to 10 years, it's not a statement that we should make anymore. Let's get it into the NHS and get it into general clinical practice is the crucial thing. And working with government and the NHS is definitely something which we are doing.
That's Professor Pete Coffey. Now, when writer Red Sale talked to In Touch about his decision to give up his guide dog after only 8 months, he knew he was taking a risk. We usually hear about the life-changing experience of guide dog ownership, and clearly for many that's true. But Red wanted to share a different perspective. For those who missed it, here's just a flavour of his reasons.
One of the good things about friendship is it tends to be on equal footing. I'm just not cut out to be anybody's god. And I think the fact that the dog did think that I was God, I just found a bit disturbing, to be honest. I take her to yoga, and though she was very good at demonstrating the downward dog position, she would howl all the way through, so I couldn't take her there anymore. And I go swimming in the men's pond on Hampstead Heath, and she would go and stand at the end of the jetty like the French lieutenant's woman and howl until I came back.
Well, the coals of fire that he expected have indeed descended upon his head. Listener Catherine Gordon will give you a sense of the public mood. Of course the dog was howling when the man was in the pond, she emailed. The dog's training meant she wanted to protect him at all times and would howl when obstructed. Considering how few guide dogs there are and how long the training takes, he wasted valuable resources. It's one thing not to be a dog person, another to be so self-absorbed and arrogant. Ouch. Well, at the time of the programme, Guide Dogs told us that 92% of partnerships were still operating successfully after a year. But some of your emails, rather than rounding on Red, had questions for the organisation. Well, we invited Graham Kensett from their training staff to answer some of them. But first, he gave me his reaction to Red's case.
It is rare. Obviously, when we're looking at the matching of our dogs, we try to identify the right dog for the right person. We take that element very, very seriously, because we know what can happen if things don't go smoothly, things don't go well.
Can I put to you some of the things other listeners have been saying? Charlotte Kasner is a dog trainer. She is surprised that any fully trained dog would behave like this, and she describes her own dog, which is a husky, which she says are hard to train, and but that she says it now behaves, trained to walk calmly past cats and even foxes. And what she says is, given the high rate of failure in training, and I think she means by that before the dog ever gets to the partner, she says, I wonder how many dogs are being rushed through to satisfy need without basic behaviours being consolidated.
I think it's a fair question. I think it's really important that we put quality right at the forefront, and I think that quality is shown in the successes.
But how high is the failure rate during training, the dogs that don't ever get to the stage of being partnered with a human being?
We work on an overall success rate of around about 60% of those dogs that we're breeding. And so, you can recognise that there's 40% of the dogs which come through the breeding programme which actually don't make the grade, and that's why the quality element is so important. As you know, we have our our own breeding scheme, and we aim for quality outcomes. The role of a guide dog is one that can be challenging. We are working with natural dog traits. We wish to ensure that our dogs don't encounter the problems that Red encountered so far as chasing cats. And I know that he highlighted that he had a problem with actually a dog guiding him too close to a wheelie bin. During the very early stages of the partnership, it's really important that rapport and that bond is established, that we work very much on the basics where the training and the working of the dog with the customer is concerned. It's a very steady progress that is made, very gradual, and we would expect that over the first 12 months of the partnership developing, that strong rapport would develop, and that actually the overall outcome is that a person with sight loss has a wonderful companion, and a wonderful companion that is a fantastic mobility aid.
Some of the people who contact us were worried about the matching process. Martin Conway is also quite critical of Red. He acknowledges that his expectations were unrealistic, and he says Red, like himself, was probably too selfish to be able to adapt to such a dog. But he goes on, although Red doesn't criticise the training of the dog in any way, there would surely have been concerns from the outset about the bond he did or didn't have with his dog. Surely this should have been obvious to the Guide Dog Association. And, this maybe, he says, highlights their determination to create as many guide dog partnerships as possible, irrespective of their circumstances and degree of sight.
It's really difficult for me to comment specifically where Red is concerned, but what I would say and what I would agree with is that the bond and the rapport that is established between dog and person who is blind partially sighted is absolutely critical. We identify the Labradors and the Labrador Cross Golden Retrievers because they do develop a strong bond relatively swiftly, and that is absolutely critical if a partnership is going to be successful. I think it's fair to say that we go through a fairly rigorous process to try to identify the right dog for the right person. During that period, we have professional staff that are visiting puppy walkers on a very regular basis, generally speaking about once a month. We also run a puppy socialisation training and programs. And so the probability of things going not smoothly during that first 12 months are limited. We're not saying that things are going to be absolutely hunky-dory and that things will be 100% smooth. Of course, problems will occur, but that's why we have our professional staff right on hand to work with puppy walkers to give the appropriate advice and hopefully to gain, at the end of 12 to 14 months, a really nicely balanced, well-socialised dog that is accepting of people and is also accepting of the various circumstances and environmental conditions that it's likely to be working in.
Just too quick is to end with. Liz Silver has sometimes thought about getting a dog, but clearly has some of Red's reservations about the degree of commitment needed. And she asks, what I would like is a version of Doctor Who's dog, K9. Surely, with technology nowadays, isn't it there to develop one? And care would be much more like having a cane than a dog. And don't I remember a Japanese electronic dog?
I think that's a really interesting comment, and I think where we're going with artificial intelligence is absolutely fascinating. What I'm absolutely certain about is that whatever machinery that we have, it will not take place and it will not replace the genuine affection, the genuine bond, and the genuine guiding relationship that is established where guide dogs are concerned. So I do accept technology is going to new heights, absolutely amazing and absolutely exciting. I'm very confident that they are not going to take the place of a guide dog.
OK, and one more. David Sutton was one of many people who said what will happen to Red's dog or dogs like them. He just wanted to know if there'd be a happy ending for this dog.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really important point to make, Peter. I can confirm that Ella has been rematched and is working as a guide dog. But if we talk generally, then I would just say that those dogs that, for whatever reason, don't make the grade, it may be they would be withdrawn on health grounds. We do have a long waiting list of people that wish to take on the care for our dogs. So in that situation where a dog needs to be withdrawn and situation where it doesn't actually go out as a working dog, it would be rehomed in a nice family environment.
Graham Kensett of Guide Dogs. And another topic which deeply shocked some In Touch listeners was the announcement last August that 3 specialist hotels offering a service to blind and partially sighted people were going to be sold. Among the reasons given at the time were that demand was falling and that Action for Blind People, part of the RNIB group, no longer felt it could justify the cost of upkeep and repair. Well, the fear of those who still enjoyed using those hotels was that with a sale, the service would disappear or radically change. But there now seems to be some better news about one of them, the Lauriston in Weston-super-Mare. Well, Terry Stevenson is Director of Operations at Action, and she explained what was happening.
The latest with the Lauriston is really good news for our customers. So the hotel will be sold to the Weston College. We're hoping that sale will complete in the next few weeks. And Weston have expressed a desire and enthusiasm to continue provision of the hotel as a going concern, and specifically to our customer group.
And the Weston College is is a hotel group, basically.
The Weston College is the college that's based next door to the hotel, but they also have provision around catering, and the hotel will go into that specific part of the business.
So what can people expect in terms of how the service will compare with what they've had before at the Lauriston?
Well, the Weston would be able to give you a much more detailed response than I can, because they will obviously be doing some preparations now that I can't see. But the indications that they've given us is that the service will continue as it currently is, and that they will continue to meet the needs of blind and partially sighted people. And the really good news is that our staff, who have throughout this continued to provide excellent customer service for our customers, will be transferring over to the new provider. So anybody visiting the Lauriston can expect the same warm welcome from the same staff team that they've become very familiar with.
So really, as far as you can see, continuity, or something very close to continuity.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we can see at the moment, yes.
Now, there were 2 other hotels, the ones at Windermere and Teignmouth. Is there anything you can tell us about those?
Again, Guide Dogs could give you a specific update, but we have been supporting them as they have actively marketed those hotels for sale. Our understanding is that there has been significant interest in them, and we're still hopeful that they will be sold as a going concern.
That's Terry Stevenson, and we'll keep you abreast of any other changes that are happening. And that's it for today. To find out more about any of our items, you can call our action line on 0800 044 044 for 24 hours after the programme. You can email intouch@bbc.co.uk. You can tweet using #InTouch. And you can also download an extended version of this programme as a podcast if you'd like to know more about the items we've covered. That's on our website now. From me, Peter White, producer Cheryl Gabriel, and the team, goodbye.